Chapter 3. The sounds of battle could be heard throughout the Shinomori. It sounded like two people throwing fists and kicks at one another. The two people were Anko and Naruto. Anko was not wearing her trench coat as it got lost during their battle. Anko prepared herself as Naruto was flying at her. He used the Bunshin technique and created a mass number of them. Anko cursed and kept herself alert. Naruto could attack her from anywhere now. She didn't have to wait long as a streak of fire came at her from behind. She jumped out of the way, but it was just as Naruto wanted her to do. He caught her with a flying tackle in midair. He quickly twisted her around and used a shoulder throw to toss her into a tree. Anko hit the tree hard and gasped. Naruto smirked at his victory until he watched Anko turn into a log. He cursed as he was exposed, which Anko capitalized on. Naruto was suddenly wrapped up by 4 snakes and dragged toward the ground. He hit the ground with a thud. Anko pulled him toward her, and when he was close enough, she held a kunai to his throat. "That's my win," Anko said, but with a very tired voice. "Fine, you win. Now get these snakes off me. Why do you keep using poisonous snakes when you use the Senjutsu?" Naruto exclaimed. "Oh, stop being a baby. They're not going to bite you," Anko said. "You said that the last time, Oni-chan." Anko just smirked and released him. The two sat and rested for a while. She looked at Naruto and couldn't help but feel proud of the progress that Naruto had made within these 3 months. His chakra control was at a level that put him ahead of his classmates. His taijutsu had greatly improved as well. She taught him the basics of the hubby style but told him not to use it around Konoha. What was really good was his ninjutsu. He was able to do the 3 academy jutsu and a couple that she showed him. One was the Kaden Ruka no Jutsu, and he also knew the Doden Dochu Igyo no Jutsu. The last thing was that he was able to detect a genjutsu and dispel it. In addition, she improved his sneakiness, infiltration techniques and awareness. She could say that Naruto was going to pass this time in the academy. There was no doubt in her mind. "Well, Gaki, this is the last day of your training with me," Anko said. "What? But I still have a lot to learn from you," Naruto exclaimed. "Sorry, but my 3-month leave is up. Besides, it isn't like I'm going to stop showing you stuff. It's just that our time will be limited because I'll be doing some kick-ass missions," she said. She chuckled when Naruto pouted. "Don't pout. We'll still see each other. However, there is one more thing that we got to do before this all ends." Naruto looked at her and was wondering what she was planning. XXX. Iruka stood at the entrance of the academy and greeted returning students. He was waiting for one student in particular, mostly because he had not seen the boy during the summer. He did try searching for him, but it seems that he had vanished for the village. He went to the Hokage about it, but the old leader assured him that Naruto was in good hands. Still, he was worried about the blonde and wondered what he was up to. "Hey Iruka-sensei, how was your summer?" a voice called out. Iruka turned to the person who was standing in front of him. He was a blonde-haired kid dressed in a pair of black pants that was tied at the shins, an orange and black jersey that covered a mesh shirt, and an orange coat with short sleeves. Iruka looked at the kid with narrowed eyes. "Can I help you?" Iruka asked. "Come one sensei. Don't you recognize me?" "It's me, Naruto," Naruto greeted. Iruka dropped the clipboard he was holding. He looked closely at the boy and saw the whisker marks. He could help but be surprised. "And Naruto?" Iruka asked in shock. The blonde only smiled. XXX. Anko entered the Hokage's office and stood in front of the aged leader. He looked at her with a smile. "I would assume that you have resolved your issues," Hiruzen asked. "Yes sir, everything has been dealt with and I can continue on without issue. I came to get a mission should there be one for me," Anko said. "Yes, I do have a mission for you, but before you get it, I need to ask you about Naruto," Hiruzen asked. Anko looked a little shocked at the request. "What would you like to know, sir?" "I don't know what I can tell you though. Anko said, playing dumb. Now Anko, I am the Hokage and Naruto is very important to me. Did you really believe that I wouldn't have noticed that you've been teaching him? Hiruzen asked with a raised eyebrow. Anko blushed in embarrassment. So, do you think that he will pass this time around? Without question, Naruto will become a genin. Anko said with confidence. I'm glad to hear that. Now, let's discuss your mission. XXX. Naruto was getting a lot of looks from everyone in the class. It was kind of annoying but not surprising. He knew that his change of clothes would attract attention as he was not wearing as much orange as he liked. He loved the orange jumpsuit but Anko had told him that he was to get rid of it. He was stubborn about it but he forgot who he was dealing with. Anko just raided his apartment and burnt all his clothes. That when she took him shopping for some new clothes. She allowed him to have clothing with orange but it couldn't be too bright. He did like the clothes and the coat that she had specially made for him. It wasn't so bad after all. He looked to his left to see his crush, Haruno Sakura. Normally, he would do anything to sit next to her but he was ordered by Anko not to sit next to her. He remembered the argument that he had with her about it. Flashback. Anko was enjoying the bowl of ramen that she had swiped from Naruto. The blonde was currently tied to a tree, struggling to get free. You know, this isn't half bad. Still, it doesn't compare to dango and red bean soup. Anko said. Blasphemy. Ramen is the chosen food of the gods. Naruto exclaimed. Anko ignored him and drank the broth. She let out a satisfied sigh while Naruto cried at the loss of his ramen. Quit being so melodramatic, you'll just be eating several bowls once one let you go. Now, will you do as I asked? Anko asked. I don't get what you have against Sakura but I'm not going to not sit by her just because you said so. Naruto said with an edge. Anko sighed at him. Well, I didn't want it to come to this but you leave me no choice. Kuchio's no jutsu. Anko called out. When the smoke cleared, Naruto's face was white with fear. In front of him was Anko's pet summon, Kaijin. Kaijin was the bane of his existence as the serpent did everything Anko told him to do. He also had the annoying habit of conducting electricity like an eel. Anko just smirked at him. So, what do you say now? I hate you so much. Naruto grumbled. I love you too. Anko said with a grin. Present. Naruto just sighed and sat back. He was awaiting the boring lessons that he would have to go through for another year. XXX. It was a week since the academy year had started and Naruto was enjoying it some. It didn't take him long to cut class and make some people lives miserable. He loved that one prank he did on one of the teachers. What was so great about it was that they could never prove it. He was able to get out, do the prank and get back before anyone was wiser. The Bunshin had so much potential when it came to pranking. He was currently lying on the grass as he was tired from his private training of doing chakra control. Anko had drilled into him the art of deception and he followed that advice to the letter. As popped up to his feet and was about to go at it again. He felt that he was being watched. He zeroed in on where he was getting the feeling and threw a kunai at the spot. He heard a small squeak and rushed over to the area. He saw someone and immediately tackled the person. He spun the intruder on their back and faced them. He was surprised to see the girl from his class. Hey, your name is Hinata, right? Naruto asked. Hinata could not answer him as she was currently out cold. Naruto was very confused as to why her face was as red as a tomato. XXX. A gentle groan and the fluttering of eyes signaled the awakening of one Hyuga Hinata. She sat up and realized that she was on a couch. She recognized the couch as it belonged to her former caretaker, Yuhi Kurenai. She was wondering how she got here when Kurenai came out of her kitchen. Following her was her crush, Naruto. She, and was a little red in her cheeks. Kurenai just smiled at her while Naruto looked confused. Hey, is her fever coming back? Naruto asked. I don't believe so. How are you, Hinata? Kurenai asked. I am fine. How did IG get here? Hinata asked. You have to thank young Naruto here. He was carrying you toward the hospital when we ran into each other. Kurenai explained. Yeah, you were all red in the face and I guess I startled you into your fainting spell when I threw that kunai. Sorry about that though, I was trained to be very aware. Naruto said. It's alright, Hinata said. Wow, you sure do stutter a lot. Naruto said. Hinata hid her face a little. Now, that's a rude thing to say. Hinata is just very shy. Kurenai said. Really? But isn't she a Hyuga? Naruto asked. Hinata looked dejected after that. She was sure that he would not hang with her because of that. His next words surprised her though. I guess that's okay. Most of the Hyugas I've met look really constipated, especially the clan head. Kurenai nearly choked on her tea as Naruto said that about Hinata's father. Hinata looked at Naruto in surprise. He doesn't see me like the rest of my clan. Hinata thought. So, you use that style of yours right? What is it called? Oh yeah, it's called the Juken right? Naruto asked. Yes but I'm not that good at it. Hinata said. Well, you won't get good unless you practice. Say, how about, as an apology, we train together after school? Naruto suggested. Really? Hinata asked with surprise. Sure, you don't act like the typical Hyuga. You seem nice. Why don't we train together? Naruto said. Hinata couldn't be happier. Naruto didn't think of her like the rest of her clan and he was willing to hang with her. It was a start that she could work on. Kurenai was happy for her. She knew how much Hinata admired the blonde Jinchuriki and would help her any way she can. I think that is a great idea. You can both grow from training from each other. Who knows, you two might become friends. Kurenai added. This made both of them smile. Hinata smiled because it would mean that she would be spending time with her crush. Naruto smiled because he might be gaining a friend. Things were changing in the life of Uzumaki Naruto and it looked like that it was getting better. A family of foxes and snakes. Chapter 4. Naruto was lying a few feet away from Shikamaru and Choji. They had decided to cut class today and made their escape thanks to Naruto. You know Shikamaru, I can see why you like doing this. It is kind of relaxing. Naruto said. See, I know what I'm talking about. Shikamaru said. You're still a lazy ass though. Naruto added. This only got him a Mendokuse from the lazy Nara. Naruto just smirked and kept looking at the sky. How did he ever become friends with the laziest person ever was a surprise to him, Shikamaru and the whole academy. It began over a game of shogi. Flashback. Naruto was eating lunch with Hinata. He enjoyed it much more when she would cook and share with him. It was amazingly good and he enjoyed it a lot. It had been a month since the two met and they had become very fast friends. They learned things about each other and helped each other. Hinata helped Naruto become more attentive and helped him eat a little healthier. Naruto helped Hinata become a little confident and showed her how to have some fun. Both enjoyed the friendship and were becoming best friends. They suddenly turned to a commotion. They watched as two guys were dragging someone else away from two other guys. Naruto instantly knew the two as Choji and Shikamaru. He wondered why the guy was so angry about. What do you think is going on, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked. He must be angry with Shikamaru. He must have won again in shogi. Hinata said. Shogi? He asked. It's a game but you would find it quite boring. She answered. It can't be that boring. Can you teach me how to play? Naruto asked. What are you planning on, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. She was wary of the grin on his face. XXX. A week later, Naruto walked up to the two friends with Hinata in tow. The Hyuga heiress had tried hard to deter Naruto's idea but she knew how stubborn he can be. Naruto stood in front of Shikamaru. The lazy Nara gave him a bored but curious glance. Hey Shikamaru, how about a game of shogi? Naruto asked. Choji almost dropped his chips after he said that. Shikamaru was now aware of things. He sighed and pulled out his shogi board. Naruto grinned and sat down in front of him. Shikamaru didn't understand what he was so happy about. This would not take long. When everything was set up, Shikamaru made the first move. Naruto quickly made his move and waited. Shikamaru made another move and Naruto made another quick move. This continued for 5 minutes and a small crowd appeared. It would be another 5 minutes and the two were still playing. The crowd had gotten a little bigger and it included Iruka. Everyone was amazed that the dead last had lasted this long against Shikamaru. The young Nara had a very annoyed look on his face and was glaring at the board. He couldn't understand how it got this way. This was supposed to be quick victory. Naruto didn't have any plan. He would just move a piece as quick as possible. He barely gave the move any thought. Still, he was gaining some sort of ground and it frustrated him to no end. Naruto was having the time of his life. When Hinata had first showed him how to play, he was bored. He decided to put his own spin on the game to suit him. It wasn't actually a strategy. He would just move his pieces quickly and without thought. It was how he did his pranks after all. He kind of enjoyed the frustrated look on Shikamaru's face. It only made his grin wider. After a while longer, Iruka told them that the lunch period was over. He looked over the game and saw that the two were in a stalemate and there would be no clear winner. Naruto stood up and held his hand out. Shikamaru looked at the hand. That was a good game. We should do this again. Naruto said happily. Shikamaru looked at the hand before shaking it. He gave a small grin. Sure, we should do this again, Shikamaru said. It was from there that Naruto and Shikamaru became friends. Present. With Shikamaru's friendship, came Choji's friendship. It was an added bonus that he loved ramen as well. Naruto had also made 2 acquaintances. One was Inuzuka Kiba. Their partnership started after Naruto took him with him to escape one of Iruka's lectures. He sweetened the deal by pranking his elder sister, Hana. Kiba still didn't know how he was able to do it and Hana could never catch him. The other acquaintance was Aburame Shino. Naruto just told him that his bugs were cool and Shino acknowledged him. The two were not really friends but they had his back should things go south for him. With the good, came the bad. His crush on Sakura was over. He had observed her and he didn't like what he saw. She was totally devoted to Uchiha Sasuke and barely did any physical work. Then one day, she came up to his face and demanded that he stopped hanging with Hinata. When he heard the reason, he was disgusted with how shallow she really was. He responded in kind by painting her whole room in neon orange. Ino was another person who he could not stand. She always thought that she knew everything and liked to brag way too much. She was also a fangirl of Sasuke's. He would just ignore her, which turned out to be the best way to deal with her. Uchiha Sasuke was a pain in the ass and the most arrogant bastard in the class. He thought that everyone was beneath him and mostly kept to himself. Despite the waves of girls that kissed his feet, he was still cold to everyone. Naruto thought that he had the ego the size of the monument. They never got along and never would. He would call him his rival, but Naruto began to see him as an annoying person who didn't like being overshadowed by those he deemed weaker than him. Naruto didn't really care if he hurt his feeling and made it his goal to overshadow the jerk sometimes. In all, he was have a much better year at the academy than he ever did. The teachers no longer tried to sabotage him, but he had a feeling that was Anko's doing. He improved in his schoolwork and in his training. He was staying out of trouble, or rather, he wasn't getting caught as much. He had friends and acquaintances. He couldn't wait for graduation as he was sure that he was going to pass for sure. XXX. Anko looked at the Hokage with surprised eyes. That quickly changed into worry, which was caught by the Hokage and his advisors. Is something wrong, Anko? Hiruzen asked. I don't have an issue with the mission, but I was hoping for something that could be done within a day or two. The mission that you're sending me on will take at least a week, Anko said. You never complained before about time. Is there something more important than this? Asked Kaharu. Enko bit back a remark to the elder woman. She was pretty sure that she knew about how close she was to Naruto. It wasn't that much of a secret anymore that the two were seen having lunch sometimes. Many, who have crossed the blonde, had to deal with her. It was something that both of the elders did not like. They especially knew that graduation was in 1 week. She always kept tabs on Naruto progress while he was in the academy. Iruka was very forthcoming in answering her questions despite the fact that he seemed nervous around her. She was happy to know that he was no longer the dead last. In fact, she learned that there would probably be no dead last this year. She was happy and glad that Naruto had a strong chance of passing this year. She wanted to be there to congratulate him and probably scare a couple of people in the area. Hiruzen caught Anko's attention. I know that you will want to be there for Naruto's graduation, but this takes priority. He told her. Anko sighed and realized that he was right. Very well, sirs, I accept this mission. Anko said with a sad tone. You have an hour to meet your team at the gates. Hiruzen told her. That perked her up. She bowed and quickly left the office to find Naruto. XXX. Anko found Naruto easily as he was at his favorite place, Iruka's Ramen. She entered the stand and greeted the two chefs. Naruto was happy to see her and offered her some ramen. Sorry kiddo, I have a mission in the next 20 minutes. Anko said. Man, I can't wait to do some cool missions. There's no way that I'll fail this time. You'll be watching, right? Naruto asked. Thanks, what I came here for. Anko said with a sigh. The mission I'm going on will take me a week to complete. I won't be here for your graduation. What? But you have to be there. You're the reason that I'm so good. Naruto exclaimed. Naruto, what is it that I told you during our 3 months? It was something very important that I told you to remember. Anko said. Aiming below the belt isn't really cheating. No. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink. No. Naruto was furiously thinking about what she was talking about when it hit him. A ninja must put the village's safety before our personal issues and wants. Naruto said. Bingo. This mission is very important to the village and I must do it. I would like nothing more than to be there so we can rub it in the populace faces, but this must be done. Anko explained. Well, that sucks. Naruto said with a pout. I know, but I have something for you. She could say that Naruto was going to pass this time in the academy. There was no doubt in her mind. Well, Gaki, this is the last day of your training with me. Anko said. What? But, I still have a lot to learn from you. Naruto exclaimed. To the village and I must do it. I would like nothing more than to be there so we can rub it in the populace faces, but this must be done. Anko explained. Well, that sucks. Naruto said with a pout. I know, but I have something for you. She pulled out a necklace. Naruto looked at it and saw that it looked just like her own pendant. Anko placed it over Naruto's head and it hung around his neck. I was going to give this to you when you graduated, but why wait when I know that you'll pass with flying colors? You were taught by me. Anko boasted. She noticed that Naruto was quiet and looking at the pendant she gave him. Suddenly, Naruto was out of his stool and hugging her. She was so surprised by the action. Thank you, Oni-san, Naruto said with happiness. The two who ran the stand smiled at the display. Hey, I told you not to call me that. Now get off me. People are staring, Anko exclaimed. When Naruto refused to let go, she struck him. After dusting herself off, she took off to reach the gate. As she made her way there, a smile appeared on her face. She enjoyed the hug and the joy in Naruto's face. XXX. A week had passed and Naruto woke up early. He was pretty nervous about today as it was the day of the Genin exam. Despite his nervousness, he was confident that he would pass easily. Anko had prepared him and he was not about to disappoint her. Thinking of the woman he dubbed his sister, He was a little sad that she wasn't going to be there in person to see him come out with his Hinata, but he knew that she was going to be with him in spirit. He took a quick bath, got dressed and had a quick breakfast. As he was leaving, he almost forgot something. He re-entered his apartment and placed Anko's gift around his neck. He looked at himself and was happy. He left his apartment and made his way to the academy. Along the way, he saw Hinata and Kurenai. Kurenai was dressed differently, but that would be because she was no longer a chunin. "Ohio, Hinata-chan, Kurenai-sensei," Naruto called out. The two women turned to see the blonde run up to them. Kurenai smiled at the blonde, who was a very positive influence on her young charge. She saw that she would still blush around the boy, but she wouldn't stutter as much. He greeted his best friend and then faced Kurenai. "Hey, congratulations on becoming a Jonin." "Thank you, Naruto. Would you like to walk with us to the academy?" she asked. Naruto nodded and the three were continuing on their way. Naruto was excited and was trying to get Hinata excited as well. Kurenai just smiled at the two and hoped that Naruto passed. If anyone deserved it after the work they put in, it was Naruto. A family of foxes and snakes. Chapter 5. Naruto was eager to get the test started. There was no way he would fail this time. He had done everything in order to pass. Iruka entered the room and was talking about the test. The test was always in 3 parts, a written exam, a physical exam and the jutsu exam. Naruto felt that he could do well on each part, especially the written part since he was tutored by Hinata. Iruka and Mizuki began to hand the papers out. The exam had just begun. XXX. Naruto stood in front of Iruka and Mizuki. He was a little nervous, but he knew that he did well. The written exam was a little hard, but he knew that he got a passable grade on the test. He excelled in the physical exam, beating out Sasuke in endurance, accuracy and stealth. Now, it was the jutsu portion of the test. Knowing the two in front of him, they would ask him to do the Bunshin jutsu. It was his worst jutsu after all. "Okay, Naruto, this is the final part. All we need for you to do at least 3 perfect Bunshin and you have passed," Iruka said. Naruto cracked his knuckles and grinned. Boy, were they in for a surprise. "Bunshin no jutsu," Naruto called out. There was a cloud of smoke. When it disappeared, standing in front of the two was 10 perfect Bunshin. Iruka was surprised and happy for Naruto. "That was great, Naruto, but you didn't have to go so far," Iruka said. "Sorry about that, but because of my high and dense chakra, this is the amount I got it down to. I could make over 1,000 with half my chakra," Naruto said. That surprised both instructors. "Either way, you have passed the exam. Come and get your Hinata," Iruka said. Naruto cheered and took his Hinata. He gave a hug to Iruka and ran out the room cheering loudly. Neither one of them saw the narrowed eyes of Mizuki. XXX. Naruto walked out of the academy in triumph. He proudly wore his Hinata for all to see. Some looked at the blonde with annoyance, others with malice. Naruto could hear the whispers of some. They were negative and hateful. Still, it did not ruin his mood. He passed with help from his Oni-san, his best friends and his favorite teacher. They believed in him and he did not let them down. He only wished that Anko was here to celebrate with him. He decided to get some Iruka's ramen to celebrate. As he left the yard, he held his Hinata up for his doubters. It may have been a mocking gesture to everyone, but he didn't care. His time with Anko showed him that all he needed were those few precious people to keep him going. He jogged out of the yard and dashed toward Iruka's. XXX. Stomach full and happy, Naruto made his way home. The owners, Toiki and his daughter, Ayame, celebrated his graduation with 10 bowls of free ramen. Naruto enjoyed them with gusto and thanked the two for their support. He looked up at the sun and saw that it was beginning to set. He wondered what he could do now. "Hey Naruto," a voice called out to him. Naruto looked to see Mizuki-sensei running up to him. Mizuki wasn't someone he trusted completely. He always felt that he was out to get him. He had no proof of that, but his gut always told him that he was bad news. Naruto always trusted his gut. Mizuki stood in front of Naruto. It's a good thing I caught you. I have something to tell you. What's up? Naruto asked. Well, I just found out that you're going to be placed on a team with Sakura and Sasuke. Mizuki said. What? That can't be right. There's no dead last this year. Naruto exclaimed. Right. There's no dead last this year. Naruto exclaimed. I know, but this was the team that the Hokage assigned. However, I have a way that you can get on another team, probably with Hinata and Shikamaru. Mizuki said. Really? Naruto asked with excitement. What would I have to do? Mizuki gave him a friendly smile while on the inside, his smile was much more sinister. XXX. Enko was walking toward the Hokage tower. While the mission was annoying, she was able to finish ahead of time. She didn't really rest as she wanted to surprise Naruto by her arrival. While she could not be there to see him graduate, she would be there to celebrate his success. Heck, she might even let him have a cup or two of sake. As she walked, she saw a weapon shop. She began to think and decided to get Naruto a graduation gift. As she was about to enter the shop, she noticed that some shinobi were going nuts. She saw two that she knew and stopped them. Azumo, Katetsu, what's going on? Are we under attack or something? Anko asked. No, but we do have an emergency. Look, Anko, do you know where Naruto is? Katetsu asked. Naruto, what does he have to do with this? Anko asked. Anko, Naruto has stolen the Fuin no Sho. Azumo said. Anko looked at him like he was crazy. There's no way. Naruto may have a tendency to do something stupid, but he's not that stupid. Anko exclaimed. We agree with you, but he was seen with the scroll. It could be someone trying to frame him, but we can't be sure until we find him. Katetsu said. Oh, I'll find him and I'll get to the bottom of this. Anko said and took off to find Naruto. XXX. Naruto was hidden behind a tree. He was trying to calm his breathing so that he would not be found by Mizuki or Iruka. Naruto knew that he had messed up big time. He couldn't believe how stupid he was for stealing such an important scroll. Sure, he got a very powerful jutsu out of the scroll, but now he realized that this assignment was nothing more than a trick to place blame on him. He should have thought things through, but he did not wish to be on Sasuke's and Sakura's team. That wasn't even the biggest thing that he learned tonight. When Iruka and Mizuki arrived and were fighting each other, Mizuki decided to tell Naruto a secret about himself. That secret was that he was the container of the Kyuubi no Yoko. He told him that he was murderer and a cause of suffering for Konoha, including Iruka. Naruto couldn't take it and ran. As he sat there, he was suddenly alert when he heard a body hit the ground. He looked out from his hiding spot to see a wounded Iruka. Landing across from him was a wounded Mizuki. The traitorous shinobi glared at Iruka. I can't believe that you've lasted this long against me. Mizuki growled. It goes to show you that strength isn't everything. I would give up if I was you. Iruka said. Why should I? I'm going to kill you and then I'm going to kill the demon. Mizuki stated. I will never allow you to harm Naruto. Iruka shouted. How can you protect the thing? The Kyuubi killed your parents. Mizuki spat. Yes, the Kyuubi killed my parents, Iruka said. Naruto felt his heart shatter after he said that. However, Naruto is not the Kyuubi. He is a proud member of Konohagakure and he will grow to be one of the strongest shinobi there is. He is my precious student and I will protect him with my life. That statement made a few tears fall from Naruto's eyes. He was just so happy to hear that Iruka thought of him as one of his precious people. Mizuki looked at Iruka with disgust. You're pathetic. I'm just going to finish this now. Mizuki said. He charged at Iruka, spinning his shuriken like a buzz saw. Iruka readied himself when his leg gave out on him. Mizuki laughed when he saw this and was on him. That's when a blur appeared and launched Mizuki back a few feet, his shuriken sent flying across the forest. Iruka looked up and saw that the person who saved him was Naruto. Naruto, what are you doing? You need to get out of here. Iruka shouted. Mizuki groaned and rubbed his nose. He looked forward and glared hard at Naruto. You damn brat, I'll gut you open. Mizuki said. The only one who is going to be gutting things open is me. You're going to pay for hurting my sensei and for trying to get me in trouble, Mizuki Tem. Naruto stated. Just try it, Kyuubi. You don't have anything that can hurt me. Mizuki shouted. Take this, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto shouted. There was a large blast of smoke that appeared. When it cleared, Iruka and Mizuki were in awe. Surrounding the area were over 100 copies of Naruto. Each of them had a menacing grin on their face and cracking their knuckles. I can't believe what I'm seeing. He learned how to do solid clones in the span of 2 hours. What's even more amazing is that he doesn't look winded. Iruka thought with amazement. Mizuki was just too shocked to say anything. So, you've got nothing to say. All right then, I'll do all the talking with my fists. The clone said and descended of Mizuki. Mizuki could do nothing but scream into the night. After a few minutes, Mizuki laid on the ground in a heap with welts and bruises on his face. The clones were gone and Naruto was rubbed the back of his head. Iruka just looked at his one-time student with amazement. That's when 3 people appeared. Naruto froze in fright at the glare he was getting from one of the people. Hey Anko Onisan, when did you get back? You are the stupidest person I have ever. Anko stopped her rant long enough to see Iruka on the ground, bleeding. Oh my god, Iruka. She sped by Naruto, smacking him to the ground and was at Iruka's side in an instant. Everyone, including Iruka, was shocked as Anko held him and checked him over. Everyone just wondered what the heck was going on. XXX. Naruto and Anko stood before the Hokage. He had a stern look on his face as he stared at Naruto. The blonde avoided looking at the man he thought of as a grandfather. He was just so ashamed of his actions and decisions. Normally, I would have dismissed you from the ninja ranks, Naruto. However, you were set up by an authority figure. If you can't trust your authority figures, then who do you trust? Still, you should have read the situation a little better than you did. You could have caused untold problems should the scroll have fell into enemy hands. Hiruzen said. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. It will not happen again. Naruto said humbly. We will see. Now, about the Kyuubi, Hiruzen said, getting Anko's and Naruto's attention. They looked to see that his expression had softened. I am sorry that you found out this way. I was meaning to tell you about your burden at a later time. Do you know why I was used for the sealing? Naruto asked. Yes, I do, but for now, you will have to wait. You have to realize, Naruto, that there are a lot of things that are tied into you being the container of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Right now, you are still too young to learn about it. Hiruzen explained. Okay, I guess I will wait a bit longer. Naruto said with a pout. Hiruzen smiled at him. Now that we have cleared that up, let's decide how you should be punished. I believe that Anko should decide your punishment since she is partly responsible for your increased stealth. He said with a smile. Naruto looked like he was about to die. He was about to protest when he was hoisted in the air by Anko. She held him in a headlock and had a wicked G. You don't have to worry about that, sir. I plan on making sure that this never happens again. Anko said. She bid the Hokage a good night before disappearing with Naruto. Hiruzen just chuckled and hoped that Naruto survived his punishment. XXX Mizuki was tied down to a chair. He growled and tried to free himself, but he couldn't. He cursed Iruka and the Kyuubi brat for his failure. If it took the rest of his life, he would make them both pay. The door suddenly opened and entered the room was Morino Ibiki, head of the Konoha Jinmen Butai. Mizuki cursed and shook with fear as he looked upon this man. No one ever wanted to be caught and sent to him. Ibiki looked at Mizuki and gave him a smile. Don't worry, Mizuki, I'm not the one who will be doing the interrogation. I'm not really into small fry like you. I'm just here to give you a chance to come clean about who you work for. Ibiki said and looked at Mizuki. The Chunin looked at him with defiance. Ibiki just smiled at him. Have it your way. He's all yours, Ibiki said before turning to leave. As he left, another person entered. Mizuki saw who it was and grinned. Well, if it isn't the demon's keeper. Are you sure that you should? Arg. Mizuki shouted as a kunai was stabbed into his kneecap. Enko grabbed him by the hair and gave his a hard look. Mizuki was deathly afraid of that look. It promised death and untold types of pain. I personally don't care if you tell me anything. You're going to die anyway after breaking an S-rank law. You messed with my family today and I intend to make your journey into the afterlife as painful as possible. Get ready, traitor. The night is just getting started, she said and pulled out several